Good morning. It is good to see you. Not that I can see you that well, but it's good to see you. The shadows out there. It is always good to be here. We were in the Twin Cities the past few days. We went up for Michelle's birthday was on Thursday, as was Howard's. So we went up there and visited with some friends that we haven't seen in a while. Saw our daughter, and it was just a great time, refreshing. But like any time away, you come back and you're like, I need a break from my vacation, right? So, and then you add in the tragedy of daylight savings time and just a burden that no one should have to bear. She will be convinced she's jet lagging for the next several weeks because of this, and so is off the hook for any housework because of daylight savings time. Anyway, good morning. Today is, we're starting a new series today, and it's called Why? And we're asking two big questions. Who is Jesus, and why did he have to die? It's the Easter season, so to me it kind of feels like, Christmas as we're anticipating Christmas. We're leading up to that. Now we're anticipating Easter and talking about that. And Easter, Christmas is the one that we really like celebrating, and Christmas is celebrated all over the world, one version or another. Even in countries that aren't as friendly to Christianity, they still have some version of Christmas, and we could say, well, that's not the real Christmas and all that stuff, but they still celebrate it. There's some familiarity with it, and so we get this idea that Christmas is the big one. But I really think Easter is the big one, and we can't obviously have Easter without Christmas, right? Jesus can't die on the cross and rise again if he isn't first born, but Easter is where it all happens. Yeah, and so we're going to spend some time talking about it. And the reason why is it occurs to me, and I've been a Christian a lot longer than I wasn't. And even in that, the more I know, there's still some times where some things, even some really important things, can become kind of stale. It happens in all of our relationships, right? Like if you exercise a lot, occasionally I used to lift weights, and one of the things that happens with weightlifters is you're working hard and then you plateau and you're just not getting stronger. So you got to shake it up, right? Diet plans, we got to try something new. Sometimes reading plans. We were just talking about that on Wednesday or Tuesday with the men's Bible study. Like, what if I get kind of stale with my devotional life? What do I do that? What are some things I can do there? There's different things that we can do, or different parts of our life that can kind of get stale. Relationships can, and so it's good to get away and do things differently, whatever. With Easter, that can happen too. And we can just kind of take some things for granted and go through the motions, even on these really sacred things, these really, really important things. We forget, or we just we get in routine. So we wanted to kind of take a few weeks and really work towards that goal of a deeper understanding, deeper connection with Easter. And we also have some people in our church, and I love it, we have some people that have been Christians for a very long time, and then some that are still not sure. And so I think it's important to kind of close that gap a little bit. Let's bring us all together, give us some similar words as we talk about this stuff. So the two big questions, who is Jesus and why did he have to die? And today we're going to answer all your questions about who is Jesus. Figure that should take about 30 minutes. I've already used about 5, so no problem, right? I got really excited about it as I mapped out the next few weeks. I got really excited about it, and then I started, planning this message like, I don't know what to do. So there's a lot to cover. So after today, read the Gospels, and you'll get a lot more than you're going to get out of this message. But I wanted to just kind of begin talking about this. And this won't be the last. Obviously, who is Jesus is a big topic around here, right? So this isn't the only time we'll talk about it. My hope is the next several messages, and this includes our Good Friday. We're going to do some things a little different with Good Friday than we have. And then Easter Sunday, they all kind of dovetail and begin to make more sense of who he is and why he had to die. So before we get into it, let me pray. Lord, thank you for you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being born, for shedding all that majesty and royalty and coming to earth to live amongst us, people like us, to live a hard life, but a loving life, a giving life. We cannot fully understand what that meant to you, but thank you for doing that. And the mission all along was to die for us, people like us. And we can never fully understand that, but we're grateful. Never as grateful as we should be, but we are grateful. And so I pray, Lord, that you would speak through me. You would speak to me. I want to know you better. I want to hear from you more closely and more often, and I want to understand you more. So I just pray that you speak to me and through me, and we just give you the next few minutes. Thank you, Lord. So like I said, we're looking at the question of who is Jesus today, and I will not answer all those questions. And we're going to talk about more. This message assumes that Jesus was a real person who came on earth to teach us a better way of living and teach us how to know his Father. So as I was thinking about that, I was like, well, what did Jesus say about himself? Well, a lot of stuff. And so I thought, well, let's look at the I am statements. In the Gospel of John, there are 7 I am statements that Jesus says about himself. He says, I am. But before we get into that, I want to kind of do a little bit of intro, as sometimes I like to do. I like to talk about postmodernism. So if you're bored with that, just tune out. But I think it will make sense. We are in a very postmodern era, which I do think is beginning to crumble. There's some good things in postmodernism, some good sides, but this idea that we are our own source of truth, this extreme relativism, is beginning to crumble. We're cracking under that weight. But we live in this period where we are the center of truth. And there's some big reasons for that. In this country, individualism is really the key value. I want to do what I want to do. My rights, leave me alone. We come we moved here from Minnesota. And Minnesota they call it Minnesota nice. I really don't think it's that nice. I think it's more Minnesota aloof. And so it's kind of like, we're going to vote liberal because I don't want to tell you what to do. You don't tell me what to do. Everyone just look away. So it's no eye contact in the whole state, right? So this, we are the center of our own truth. I get to decide not just what I like, but what is true for me. And where this began to crack, where modernism began to crack in this country was really, you go through World War II and then into Vietnam, and all of a sudden people are like, wait a minute. And then the Civil Rights Movement, wait a minute, we've been mistreating people for how long? That's not okay. These are people. And we're fighting this. Why are we fighting this war? Our soldiers are doing what? And wait, we can't trust our politicians like that? Those aren't as trustworthy. We can't trust our leaders, which means we can't trust our parents. We can't even trust big business to make safe cars for us. This national narrative failed. We aren't who we say we are. So then what? And so things become very localized and tribal and regional and then very, very personal. So it boils down to, I don't know who I can trust. I'm going to trust me, and I'm going to live in this, it's very much like the 60s. I'm going to live in the moment. I'm going to live for today because it's all I'm guaranteed. And so people are cracking under that, but that's where we're at right now. We have even other spiritualized versions of it. I am so much the truth, I can manifest my own heart's desires. You can't. You are not all-knowing. We are not all-powerful. And that's what those things suggest. If I am the truth and I can manifest, I have that manifesting power, that means I am all-knowing and all-powerful. And that is just not true, right? We're trying to live up to something that is impossible. John Paul Sartre was a philosopher. He died in 1980. He was an existentialist, atheist, so it's really interesting. I would begin an Easter series with a quote from an atheist philosopher. I think it'll make sense in a little bit. Played a very important role in the development of existentialism and what is leading into postmodernism. He says this: no finite point has meaning without an infinite reference point. And we all went, well, no duh. Or, what does that mean, right? No finite point has meaning without an infinite reference point. I'm going to call out my good friend Austin. Austin is a great guy and one of the most directionally challenged people I've ever met. Don was once giving him some, I'm sorry, I wasn't even planning on this, but it just fits. Don was giving him some furniture, and it was in Alaska. But the directions I received, my phone sent me south for some reason. So I'm like, this is not right. I know we're going north. So I don't think I heard her contact information yet. This is about a year ago, like last summer, I think. Yeah. And so I call him, and I said, where are you? I don't know. Are you in La Crosse or on Alaska? I'm not sure. Did you go north or south? I don't know. When you left your house, did you turn left or right? Not sure. This is pretty close to the conversation. I'm not like exaggerating. And I was like, name some things that you see, right? Like in a hostage situation, he's done. Like, I don't know. I know, like, I live here now. I just like, so finally, I think you sent me the pin or something, and I got there. It was like, I'm here, and I think you followed me back. Like, he just is going to drive. So it's just bad. And so here's the idea. If I say, like, I am the center of truth, and I'm just going to continue walking north because this is north to me. Well, that isn't north. North is this way, right? Or up, as Austin says. It's up and down, right and left. So north is that way. So my sense of direction is meaningless without the North Pole to orient to, right? Like that gives my sense of direction meaning and purpose. Right, I remember years ago at the college I used to work out, we did, a colleague of mine, she got so excited about, and she ended up doing doctoral research and now teaches on kind of generational themes. What are the different generations like, and what do we need to know, particularly about younger generations? And she did this presentation, and so this was probably 10 years ago or more, and afterwards, some of the guys were talking about, guys from the RAs from one of the halls, and they said, the millennials were told, like, from the beginning, this is the next greatest generation, and they're going to change the world. And so they were just heaped, not everyone, but many were just heaped with compliments and praise. And the boomers were like, yep, the Gen Xers, what a waste, but these people, and I was like, well, you're a waste, but but these people have potential. And so, and they were like, you can do whatever you want, right? They were told. The fact is, that's not true. It's just not. And so, and there just are some limitations. And so, the guys were talking about, like, yeah, that was really, really hard for me to realize that I couldn't do everything. For instance, I really was going to, in middle school, I was determined to play in the NBA. I was going to play professional basketball. Not me, these guys. I was never interested. I'm going to play in the NBA, and then I didn't make the freshman basketball team, and that was really hard. And then I thought, well, I'll go to Bible college, and I'll be able to make that team. And I was lucky to play intramurals in Bible college. Like, that's really hard to realize the dream that I'm still carrying of playing the NBA is not going to happen. We had people in my class. I had two sets of twins in my class, boys and girls. And the boys, Jason and James Corwin, were just incredible athletes, and they're going to play pro in whatever sport they want, right? Like, it was set. But then they stopped growing in 8th grade, right? And it was like, you're not going to play pro basketball. And they never did. But we have these ideas. So in my hometown, they were great. But that isn't the reference points that determines how successful they're going to be in basketball, right? We need something beyond us. Without an infinite reference point, we have no idea if we're going in the right direction. Hopefully that will continue to make more sense. Let me give you some more examples of this as we work into this. Who is Jesus? In Exodus, I mentioned this story of last week of Moses when he's called. And he has left Egypt, right? He's fled Egypt. He was raised in Pharaoh's house. He's a Hebrew raised in Pharaoh's house, so he's well educated. But he's kind of tribeless, right? He's not really Egyptian. He's not really an Israelite. He's trying to connect with them. And he sees an Egyptian abusing Israelite, and he kills the Egyptian. And then, shortly after, some Israelites kind of confront him on that, like, are you going to kill us too? And so he flees. And now he's this shepherd in a strange land. He's essentially homeless. He's tribeless. And he's in the mountains, and there's this burning bush, and God's speaking to him through the bush. So I kind of talked about that last week. We know the story. God is talking to the bush. The bushes are being consumed, and he's debating with him. God wants him to go back to Egypt and set his people free and lead his people. And Moses is arguing with them. He doesn't want to do it. He stutters. People don't like me, and I'm sad, and all this stuff. And he's arguing with God, which is just so amazing to me that someone who really knew very little about God would argue with this clear deity of some kind, at least, is talking to him. In the conversation, he says, well, if I go back to Israelites, remember at this point in history, Judaism as we know it didn't really exist, right? That comes through Moses. God gives that to Moses. So the Israelites' connection to God is pretty wonky and vague. There's not a lot of details, and if you read Genesis and you see a lot of like weird behavior in the patriarchs, because they didn't really know what they're doing, right? They're essentially pagans being called by God into something better, but so you see this weird mashup of beliefs, and so that kind of helps make sense of some of their behavior. But they didn't know Yahweh like they did even just a few years later. So God is, but Moses knows that they're expecting like some proofs. If I go back and say God called me, like why are they going to believe me? And God says, he says, well, what is your name? What is the name of this God? What should I say to them? And God says to him, and I have always loved this, in Exodus 3:14, I am who, or sometimes your translations will say that. This is the parentheses, by the way. I am who, I am that I am. Say this to the people of Israel, I am has sent me to you. This is among my favorite names of God. The Bible has a lot of different names that try to capture and describe who God is. But God says, I am. I am that I am. I am who I am. I am right here in this burning bush, Moses. And I'm in Egypt, and I want to set my people free. Right? And I was back when everything started, when creation started, when there was nothing. I'm the one who set the spark and got it all going. I separated light from darkness. And fast forward, I'm there too. I am there ever and always. I am. Everywhere you go, I am. Everything you go through, I am there. Everything you're feeling right now, I'm there and I understand. I am that I am. This is a massive deal. It's a big deal because at that time, for them, ancient Near East beliefs was gods were localized. Gods were in mountains. This is a mountain. This mountain has a god. That one has a god. And God's saying, I'm on that mountain, and I'm over there at that mountain. I'm down here in the plains. I'm in the desert. I'm in this burning bush. And I'm back in Egypt, and I want to set those people free. I am that I am. You fast forward to the Gospel of John, which is where we're going to spend the rest of our time. Jesus is in a debate with some people, and they're asking, well, who are you? You know, and who do you think you are? And people are always trying to catch him up. And for them, for the Israelites, Abraham is where he's kind of person zero in their story. He is the one that God spoke to from his pagan land, from his pagan beliefs, and called him to Israel. He's where it all began. So they speak often of the God of Abraham, right? God, Abraham is a big deal. He's where it all began for them. Well, in this confrontation, they're like, who do you think you are? You're not even 50 years old. And he says, truly, truly, I say to you, before Abraham was, I am. And when he says I am, they go, that's what God said to Moses. I am. Like, what? You're what? And so, as you do, they try to stone him, right? Like, that's what... we just end a lot of debates if we just like, you know what? Come here. That is not why these are here, but, you know, things can have multiple meanings, right? I am. Before Abraham was, I am. So here's Jesus, this wandering rabbi. They know he's not from good stock. He was a carpenter's son, which means he wasn't trained by a rabbi. He was likely a carpenter, a shepherd, a farmer growing up. He was a tradesman. He didn't make the cut, right? And now they know this. And now you're saying not only do you have the corner on truth, but you're saying I am. You're saying you precede Abraham? What? The fact is, Jesus is either right. He makes some pretty bold statements about himself and the world and eternity and God. He makes some pretty strong truth claims. Some are pretty easy to swallow, and some are really hard to swallow. And you got to take the whole thing. He's either right or he's nuts, right? There's really no in between. He's really right or he's really, really wrong. So let's go through. In John, like I said, there are 7 I am statements. And I'm going to go through these very quickly. I said to Michelle, the more I get into this, the more I'm like, each one of these is its own sermon. So I'm going to go very quickly and hopefully begin to fill out at least one way of looking at the question, who is Jesus? John 6:51, he says, I am the living bread that came down from heaven. If anyone eats of this bread, he will live forever. And the bread that I will give for the life of the world is my flesh. So this is just after Jesus fed 5,000 people with little more than a basket of bread and fish. And the Israelites, the Jews, they liked miracles, they liked signs, they liked wonders. And so they would kind of follow if anything, special, fancy was happening, they would follow that person because they wanted to see some kind of spectacle. Here he's saying, look, I know that you saw me do that. And you like that. And of course we all like to eat bread. Not all of us like to eat fish, right? But we like to eat. And you thought that was pretty cool. But let me tell you something. That isn't what's going to sustain you. I'm what's going to sustain you. I am the living bread, and I came down from heaven. Anyone who eats of this bread, anyone who takes what I'm teaching will live forever. And then he goes on and he gets even weirder. He says, and the bread that I will give for the life of the world is my flesh. Okay, the flesh thing is, I want to say hard to swallow, right? Not planned, but a little hard to take. He says my flesh. That's foreshadowing why he came, right? This is foreshadowing Easter. And they're like, well, what I don't get that. We'll kind of put a pin in that, right? But he's foreshadowing his death. He's acknowledging their physical hunger, but reminding them that what they really want is a fuller life. Bread will only get you so far, and then you're going to die. That's just the way it works. But I'm the bread that will never decay. I will never fail to sustain you. I am ever and always the bread of life. John 8:12. And again, Jesus spoke to them saying, I am the light of the world. Again, when he says I am, that's a connection. Like, I am that I am. What? Like, this is a big deal. It's not just poetry. I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of the life. This I am statement alludes to other references in John's gospel. If you want to look up chapters 1 and 3, there's references to light. This is John making a connection, but also I am the light of the world. It also implies some judgment. It isn't just, hey, that's neat, you're the light of the world, but it implies some judgment, that there's darkness, right? That I am different from everything else. I am the light of the world. Jesus comes to differentiate between light and dark, good and evil, life and death, truth and lies. Which, for a postmodern, that's a confrontation. He's the truth and I'm not. It can't both be, right? Big T truth can't exist in multiple forms. I am the light of the world. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know where you're going. I am ever and always the light. I will bring clarity to your path. Moving on, John 10. We're going to talk more about this. There's some layers of meaning to this statement, but just for the moment, John 10, 7 through 9. Truly, truly, I say to you, I am the door of the sheep. All who come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not listen to them. I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved and will go in and out and find pasture. So this is, again, it has layers of meaning, but one is the immediate analogy is if you had a large flock and you would go from one pasture to another, there'd be a gate. A large flock owner would also have someone, not just the shepherds, but someone, at that door, right, guarding the door, protecting the sheep, watching out for them. Is it safe for you to move in or not? Among other things, this implies rest. Right? You strive so hard to provide rest for yourself, to provide peace for yourself, and you can't. I'm the door for the sheep. I'm the one. Through me, you find the rest that you crave. Part of C.S. Lewis's apologetic in Mere Christianity is that we crave things that exist, right? And we crave a rest, and not just the kind of rest we get from a couple days away, because it really wasn't that restful. It was busy. But not just a good vacation. We crave a deeper rest, a permanent rest, a whole rest. Even when we go to a Caribbean vacation, we still have troubles at home. When we went to Mexico about 8 or 10 years ago, my mom watched our kids, and I think your mom helped too, and we called like every day, right? We're still worried about our kids because we love our kids, but we're on vacation trying to enjoy that. We still have the worries of the world, right? The worries of this life. Jesus says, if you want rest, I'm the door to that rest. I am, ever and always. There is no other door. You can try. Other things kind of suggest it. He even says there are thieves and robbers. There are other people who will say, no, the rest is here. The peace is here. But it doesn't work, right? It doesn't work. My sheep follow me into the rest, to the good pastures that only I can provide. A moment later in chapter 10, he continues and he says, I am the good shepherd. And here's where he steps up a little bit. And it connects with the previous verse about the bread. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. He who is a hired hand and not a shepherd, who does not own the sheep, sees the wolf coming and leaves the sheep and flees. And the wolf snatches them and scatters them. He flees because he is a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my own and my own know me, just as the Father knows me and I know the Father. And I lay down my life for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. This is what he came to do, right? So I'm different from all those other teachers. And there were other teachers, there were other rabbis, and we have other teachers today, right? Other things that we can put our trust in, other things that we can put our hope in, and we can hope for peace and good pastures through those things. And Jesus says, those things, those teachers, those gurus, those plans, whatever, they'll never lay their life down for you. I will. I know the Father knows me, and I'll lay my life down for you. This is our plan all along, is that I would come and die for you. I am the good shepherd. He's moved his I am statements from merely nice, maybe, encouraging, hopeful, to prophetic. I am coming. And we know as we read the Gospels that much of this was lost on people. They're like, what are you talking about? We don't understand. Like, you will. It will all begin to make sense. So my translation of this would be something like this. It's much shorter. I am the good shepherd. I don't run from trouble. Instead, I put myself in the way of your trouble. He's not in trouble. We're the ones in trouble. I don't run from your trouble. I put myself in the way of your trouble. In the right version, it says there's a wolf coming, right? And we've all felt that, right? We've all felt the danger, maybe not of a literal wolf, though if you have been chased by a literal wolf, I would love to hear that story. But we've got things hounding us, don't we? We've got pain. We've got questions we can't answer. The older we get, the more health stuff scares us, whether it's our own health, our parents' health, the people around us, right? All of our friends, not us, but all of our friends are getting old, and there's like realities, right? These things happen, and we don't know. There's nothing we can do to solve those health problems. We can pray, but I can't fix it, right? I can't. And the more you live, the more you know there's some big problems, and it's really hard to answer those questions. And we sometimes feel like we are being chased by something. Sometimes it's bad decisions we made. Sometimes it's bad decisions other people made that affect us. Sometimes it's the future, like, am I going to have one? What's coming? It's health stuff, financial stuff, purpose stuff, whatever it might be. Just bad guys, because there's plenty of bad guys and girls out there. Jesus says, the hired hands, they just run. But I'm the good shepherd. And I'm going to put myself in the way. I'm going to take that for you. The wolf is going to attack, and I'm going to let him attack me instead of you. I'm the good shepherd. John 11. This is in the story about Lazarus. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. He's speaking to Martha. Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live. And everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die. So he stepped it up again, right? Not only am I someone you can get encouragement and nurture from, not only am I going to die, but if you believe that, if you believe in me, you will never die. And then he asks this, do you believe this? It's important when we read these stories that we put ourselves in them sometimes. Right? The Bible is full of stories that are, some are just like, I'm reading Judges, and Judges is so out there. You're like, what the heck? People did some really bad things. And so you're reading this and like, oh, gross, right? And so, but that we do other gross things, right? And so we put ourselves in these stories. Because sometimes these stories are so exaggerated and fantastical at times, and just like, what is going on? And the Israelites as a nation, as that develops, they get things really right and really wrong, and they're yo-yoing all over the place. And in kind of Jewish literature, it's really common to hyperbolize and make things right. We talked with the Esther story. He threw a party for 6 months. Okay, probably not 6 months, but it was a really big party. That's what that means. So some say the Israelites are just like everyone else, only more so. Like, it's just, we see ourselves in this kind of caricatured version, like these really exaggerated ups and downs. We're there. Jesus says, I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet he shall live. And everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die. Do you believe this, Jake? Do you believe this? He's asking you. Do you believe this? We have to read ourselves into that story. He's talking to Martha, who's just lost a brother. Right? She thinks. Do you believe that I'm the resurrection and the life? Do you believe that I'm the one in whom you can place your hope? That there's nowhere else to place your hope. Do you believe that or not? She says, yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who is coming into the world. So one of the ways we determine a thing's or a person's or idea's worth is its longevity. Jesus isn't teaching good ideas. He isn't teaching memes. He isn't teaching snappy quotes. Not only is Jesus the good shepherd who dies for us, he is the source of eternal life. In other places, the Bible says he conquered or defeated death. So I am here right now before Abraham, and then as far as you can see into the future, I'm there too. And I want you to be there. But I'm the only way you can get there. Do you believe that? He isn't just asking Martha. He's asking me, and he's asking you. John 14. Jesus said, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If you had known me, you would have known my Father also. From now on, you do know him and have seen him. In other words, I am the way to God precisely because I am the truth of God. You don't know where to go? Follow me. I am the way. You don't know what to do? Follow me. I'm the truth. You want to know God? Here I am. This is either true or it isn't. Jesus isn't a truth. He doesn't make that room for himself. So if we can't accept Jesus part way, I mean, we're all in our process of understanding Jesus, but Jesus isn't like, you can take some things I said, and something, and just kind of dismiss. He's like, no, this is it. I am the truth. So it's me or it's another truth. They are all mutually exclusive. All other truths, or me, right? I am the way, the truth, and the life. This is either true or it isn't. He isn't a way among other ways. And again, you say this kind of thing because you're right or you're mentally ill. Something is wrong. Have a demon he was accused of. Moving on. John 15. John 15:5. I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever abides in me and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. This is part of a long passage where Jesus develops the metaphor of being a vine into several meanings, but here's a synopsis. You think of things like pruning and grafting. Grafting is the merging of a broken branch onto a living plant. The broken branch is going to die. It's going to be wasted. But if it can be given new life as it's grafted onto a living plant, Jesus is that plant. He is that vine, and we can abide in him. We can covenant with him. We can partner with him. We can begin to merge our lives with his or not. To abide in Jesus brings faithfulness. It brings a life of purpose, or brings fruitfulness, a life of purpose, a right relationship with God, which means submitting to him and his will for your life. And here's the thing that is sometimes debated, but I think is clear as you read Jesus. We get to choose to abide in him or not. He is, as much as he is in this great I amness, this eternal I amness, all-powerful and all-knowing, he is also a gentleman. I want your heart, but I want you to decide. I want to make your life abundant and rich, but you get to decide if you want that or not. It's up to you. I am here. I came all this way, live this life to present myself to you. I want you to live. I want your life, your vine to be fruitful and plentiful, but it can't be without me. And I want that for you. I want that desperately for you. We can choose to abide or not. Jesus says, "Truly, truly, I say to you, before Abraham was, I am." He makes some pretty bold, worship team, you can come up. He makes some pretty bold claims about himself. And we're going to unpack those as we get closer and closer to Easter. He says he came to die. We're going to talk about that. Why? Why was that necessary? We're going to begin from the Old Testament because it wasn't just a New Testament thing. It was predicted from the very beginning. Jesus makes some bold claims about himself, and then he claims to be God. I am. I am that infinite reference point. I am the one that gives purpose and meaning. He is the infinite reference point by which we can gauge and guide our own finite selves. In a time of fickleness, inconsistency, unreliability, faithlessness, and just, it has always been bad. It isn't worse than ever before. It has always been bad. Again, as I often say, at one point there was a 25% murder rate when Cain killed his brother, right? Like, it's always bad. 2 people had it made and thought, no, I want to eat that, and ruined it, right? So we have always been broken. We've always had the potential to do really awful things, and sometimes some really great things. But in a time of fickleness, inconsistency, unreliability, and faithfulness, Jesus is ever the same, ever constant, ever present, ever. We know people in our lives we can't count on. We've tried different things to make sense of things, to get purpose to our lives, to give meaning, to get us up in the morning, get us through the day, and eventually they fail. Jesus says, I am ever and always the vine, the bread, the truth, and on. He's always nourishing. He's always guiding. He's always opening doors. He's always resurrecting, and he's always giving life. And so as we go towards Easter, whether you're new to this or you've been around the block a few times, I encourage you to just ask Jesus, help me to have a fresh experience with you this Easter. Some of us are white-knuckling it, and we don't need to. Just got to hold on, and that isn't a life connected to the vine. That isn't abiding in Jesus. Jesus has a fuller life for you. I'm not saying all the problems go away. Life is hard. This is a broken world. But we trust in Jesus. We give ourselves to Jesus, and he's able to make it rich. He's able to give it purpose and meaning. He's able to give it hope, not just for this moment, for eternity, because he is ever and always the I am, ever and always reaching out to you, to love you, to give you a fuller life, to include you in his work. And so can we, whether we're new or old in this journey in Christ, can we just say, Lord, I want a fresh experience with you. I want to know you more closely. I want to live this out more fully, more richly. So help me to experience you new. Let me just pray. Lord, thank you for coming. Thank you for coming and showing us, teaching us, challenging us with some crazy ideas about yourself, these true ideas. You are the I am, and you did all this for us, and that makes no sense. Why would you do that? But you did. So Lord, I pray for my own heart. I've been trying to follow you for a long time, and I get it wrong, and sometimes the spigot turns off a little bit and it just dries up, and I want a fresh experience with you. I want to know you more fully, more closely. So I pray, Lord, that you would help us through your Spirit to encounter you and to be open to what you have for us. In your holy name.